attorney to be done, because she's going to have to pipe in there. But you all were given, I think, an up-to-date contract with some changes from the original one that was sent when the agenda was finished. If you haven't gotten it for any reason, the city attorney could pass it out. Within that contract, there are a few key items for the Ultra people that they are not in agreement with, and they can get up here and let you know what they're not in agreement with, that they would like to see different, to see if there's a will here to make that change. And of course, the residents also have some requests of changes that they would like to see in the contract, that I think they have an equal right to represent to you their point of view. I will say this, that and the city attorney could attest to that, because she's been putting a tremendous amount of hours at Ultra. She's kind of become the Ultra attorney, working basically Ultra for the last few days. And I'd just like for this to end whichever way is the will of the majority of the commission, but to end today, because we have a lot more work to do in this city than just to be dealing with Ultra. And frankly, I've put enough time to it. My position, so that I could be clear to my colleagues, was one, that I had to be fair to both sides, regardless of what my feelings were. And we put together the best contract that we think would protect the city of Miami, would protect the trust, and that would bring the most amount of dollars, if it's the will of the majority of this commission to pass it. I'm one vote up here, and I'm going to be clear up from the start. I will not be voting for the contract. My reasons are simply the following. I do believe that Ultra has done a fine job in keeping security within their concert, and to a greater extent to a lot of the outside areas immediate adjacent to the concert area. The noise level inside, it's less than most bars you would go to. The people that I saw, well, frankly, it's not my cup of tea, but I'm not judging it based on that. They were basically well behaved. Security was excellent. So inside of what's going on, I didn't have any problems with it. My problems with Ultra are twofold. One, in 20 years, for whatever the reason is, they have not been able to control the high decibel rate of noise that goes up. When they first started, we didn't have the condominiums that we had along Biscayne Boulevard and to the sides. Those were different years, a different Miami. We do have now thousands of residents there, and that's been a big change. I personally went the last day of the concert on Sunday and visited many of the condominiums, from one extreme of Biscayne to the other. And I will tell you that, in particularly the ones up front, the noise level to me would have been unbearable. We measure them at anywhere between 104 to 107 decibels. This is what I'm told was more or less what the residents that had hired a company to measure the decibel rate showed. So it matched with what we did with an app that we had with the phone. The kind of music that Ultra plays is not like maybe other types of musical venues that it changes depending on what is played. You know, it's the same dum, 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 and you know, after an hour, you could be hitting your head against a wall. Imagine 3 full days, not including the practice days. So while I don't represent this area as a commissioner, these people don't vote for me, nevertheless, I do represent the whole city, and I have an obligation to the residents that are there. And if I certainly would not want to live with that, how can I feel different then, just because I'm not there? So, having said that, that's my main reason why I will vote against it. My secondary reason is that, unbeknownst to most people, because we have a city that is a pioneer city. Every 10 years, we have a sizable percentage of our city that's changed. There's new people that came in, and they know very little of our history. And then you get a couple of wise guys that come in, they're here 2 or 3 years, and they want to be the moral compass and tell you what Miami's like and who's who and what is good and what is bad and what is right and what is wrong. But I will tell you that I was one of the 3 people responsible, and I would say the key vote responsible, for the type of park that we envisioned we were going to have in Bayfront Park, the Negushi concept. I remember that one of my biggest problems at the time was that we had a beautiful library that was right in the middle of Flagler Street, where you have the fountain at the end. And Negushi wanted to be able for people all the way up Flagler Street to see the fountain straight through, and the library was in the middle. I felt it was a historical library, and I don't say that loosely because what some people like to say is historical, and the way the term is thrown nowadays is very fast and loose. But I thought that library was historical, but nevertheless, Negushi was a world-renowned builder of parks, designer of parks, and we felt this is going to be a world-class park. So after numerous meetings with Mr. Negushi, I agreed that we were going to tear the library. One of the other problems we have is that we got a fountain with no water and some additional problems, but that's going to change, I promise that. And it's going to go back to the grandeur that Negushi envisioned with that fountain. Who knows, maybe we'll go even higher with the water. But the bottom line is that I never would have thought that this park would have been closed as long as it has been sometimes. And parks are for people. Parks should be open. This is our central park, not just for the city of Miami, but for all of greater Miami-Dade County. And it's nothing personal against the Ultra people. I think they're fine people. I think they truly have done all that they can to try to make it work with the changes of the new Miami that we have. But, you know, sometimes when things change, not everything can stay the same. And those are my only 2 reasons why I will be opposing this. Nothing else, nothing less. Those 2 reasons. And I want to say this also. I will respect whatever the will of my colleagues is. If a majority or supermajority here votes that they want Ultra to stay. Even though I'm voting against it here, I will be a good soldier, because after all, we're one city. We're not a divided city. And I will go to the trust with my vote, since that would have to be voted against there. I would vote in favor there. But having said that, I don't know how this is going to turn out today. I got some ideas, but you never know until the votes are cast. And I'll be very respectful of my colleagues, whichever way they vote.
I'm very confused. I don't know. It feels like a big waste of time or some sort of game here, because really, Commissioner, you're the only one that's been at the table negotiating with Ultra for the last 6 months. And so I don't understand that you're bringing forward a contract that you don't support. So if that's the case, what are we doing here? I mean, we're done.
Commissioner, that's been the problem since you've been here. You don't understand a lot of things. And for you at this point in time to tell me that you don't understand what we're doing here. Look, I'm one person, I'm one vote. I'm not a strong mayor, dictator mayor that can do whatever I please. We do things in a democratic way. And I understand that. I respect our process and our system. And even though I might feel one way, I understand that a majority of you might feel a different way. And I have, as I stated clearly, a responsibility to put together the best contract and bring forth to this commission. That I did to safeguard everyone, not just in the trust, but in the city of Miami. It's up to this commission to decide what it wants to do.
Isamu Noguchi did have a great plan for that park. He was an amazing Japanese-American who designed lots of parks, which really brought kids closer to the land. And if I remember the fights that you had with him back in those days about that library, when the suggestion to remove the library was, your retort to him was, maybe he should hang some red lanterns on it, and that would make him more comfortable with it.
Yeah, I said that.
That's really ugly.
Yeah, I said that. Well, now 20 years later, now you come with the ugly. I guess the next thing you'll be saying, I'm a racist.
I didn't say
But then again, the guys you love to hang around with that are not racist, according to you, are the ones that put the advertising with all the Oriental ladies in the spas with the so-called happy ending. Those guys are okay to you. It's someone that might make a joke to you that's the so-called racist. But you know what? I respect Noguchi. He respected me. You were yo-yoing somewhere in the world when we were accomplishing something great for Miami.
Congratulations.
And I'll tell you something else you didn't even know, sir. We have a sister park in Japan, Sapporo, that Noguchi built. I was there with the mayor of Sapporo, and even though that park is much, much larger than ours, it's over 200 acres, some of the same things that Noguchi left in our park, he built identical twins over in the Sapporo Park, like the slide for children that we have, the marble one, this white. Sapporo has the black one. So, for your information, and maybe we could do something with Sapporo and that in the future, we have a sister park that Noguchi left us with Sapporo, and we made a sister park with Japan in one of Noguchi's world premiere parks.
We're getting sidetracked. What we're dealing with is the Ultra contract, and we've been brought a contract that the chairman of the trust can't support. I don't understand how we can. Like I said, I haven't been at the table here, and I'd like to have been. I reached out to Ultra 2 years ago with what I knew would be the demands of the residents, who at that time were very tolerant of sharing the space. and we had a certain list of demands. We were speaking with Ultra, and then it just went radio silence. And those demands had to do with park access, it had to do with hours, it had to do with lights, it had to do with noise. I saw all of that as completely surpassable obstacles. We could figure it out. But like I said, it's been radio silence until yesterday. Yesterday, and since then, it's been a flurry of negotiations that it's too much for us to even contemplate and bring to the neighbors and come back. To decide on a 5-year contract here without the support of the chairman of the park itself, we're going through some very strange exercise here that doesn't quite make sense. I came in today as a no, simply because there's just so much here that isn't spoken about in this contract, with what else is going on in the park with regard to the use of the park, the over 100 events in the park. And the only thing that was going to be able to get me to a yes today was a 1-year contract that gets me and the neighbors back to the table, where we can talk about the park in its totality and all of the other events, and look at everything that even to this day sounds like hasn't been worked out yet. It seems like there is an impasse even still. And so the real shame here is that what could potentially be a survivable partnership between the neighbors and a successful event is going to die for lack of process and negotiation and everybody being heard, and that's a real shame, because this entity has been here for 20 years. I don't agree with everything that was said by both sides this morning. I think it's become so divided that it's a real shame. Ultra likes downtown Miami because it has the backdrop that is those buildings. Because otherwise they'd go off to a farm where they didn't have to deal with all of us. You know, they'd have all the space and hours and lights and noise they'd want. But what makes it exciting for them is to be in the thick of downtown. But they are guests in downtown. And so I believe in plur. Peace, love, unity, and respect. And if you are someone from Ultra who says, well, we were here first, so screw their quality of life, then you're not showing that peace, love, unity, and respect. But I believe that there is a way for us to figure this out and get along and get together, but it hasn't happened to this day. And if the chairman's not going to champion you through and figure out how to get it all together, this is all going to fall apart. I don't mean it as an attack on you, Joe. I really don't, Commissioner.
Well,
I'm
sure you don't.
You know, but it looks like this is going to fail today, and for lack of being put together properly, whether it's I don't know. The neighbors have been with me though every day over this last 6 months trying to figure out what they need to make this palatable, and that only changed, I'd say, in this last 2 months, where they went from we can live with it with this, and this, to now it's just we can't live with it because they don't feel like they're at the table. And so for that, I'm a no.
Let me tell you, it hasn't been easy. I met with both groups, and I can see the impact, economic impact that it makes, but at the same time, the downtown has changed quite a bit. There's a lot more residents like there was there before. I think we try to get Ultra to do certain things. I mean, the contract that I have, there's a lot of things that they don't want to do, they reject it. And I think there's a way that can be tolerated by the neighbors and by them. I wouldn't mind going through a year, but I would like to see some of the changes that you had originally in the contract and according to the neighbors. My understanding, the biggest problem is how long can they use the park? How long does it take to put up and come down? What can they do to make sure that the grass gets put away within a week? And that type of things. The decibels, they can come down. They can always change the stations and put the station all the way back towards the bay instead of the buildings, and that could help a little bit. So personally, I'm looking at the contracts that we proposed. Well, I imagine it was your proposal, Commissioner?
It was the executive director who was here, and somewhere in here is our executive director. He could speak to it if you like. Uh, Additional staff from the trust, the city attorney, and the assistant city attorney involved, the Ultra people that have been deeply involved, and changes were made up until maybe even today, if not yesterday, before it was sent out. The neighbors were involved, and they could attest to that, I've been very respectful and reached out to neighbors. But if I can, Commissioner, let me cut to the chase. And let me instruct the city attorney in something right now. The way that the ordinance that we have, in my mind, is not forgetful. We have to keep that park open 50% of the year. And I think that on top of that, the trust can use another 30 days if it needs it. I'd like for you to bring an ordinance back to us, Madam City Attorney, that will make it 85% of the year. The park has to be open, not 50 like the ordinance reads, and to take out the clause of another 30 days that the trust could keep it closed in addition. We can't vote upon that today because it's an ordinance that has to be put out in the papers, advertised, and then it has to be read first reading, and after that meeting, in another meeting, a second reading, because ordinances are read twice. So if you could bring that to us at the next meeting, changing the ordinance that we have now from 50% that the park has to be open to 85% of the year that the park has to be open, which means that the park would only be closed at the most 55 days, which even that is too much, but I'm trying to be as amenable as I can. And you take off the other clause that the trust can close it for an additional 30 days if it so wishes. And this commission can vote it up or down, but I'd like for that to be brought to us at the next meeting. Now, the one thing that I do have to answer, you know, I don't mind all the posturing and everything else, but for you to say here publicly, Commissioner Russell, that you have not been informed on negotiations or anything else, when you know well that your pipeline to Ultra has been bigger than that tunnel that was built over in the port under the water, you knew exactly what points they wanted, what they didn't want. There were no surprise to you, and you also knew that you had other avenues that were available to you. So please use any other excuse that you would want to, but don't use that excuse. And next time you want to take a cheap shot at me, because since I've arrived here, you didn't want me to be chairman, you didn't want me to name people. It's been one after another. The last one was at the last trust meeting 2 days ago. You sent one of your staff so that your appointment to that trust, and you shouldn't have put that gal in that situation because she was embarrassed, her hands were shaking, to try to put a resolution to try to recall the $3 million that we sent to the city of Miami. And by the way, so everybody would know, that $3 million doesn't affect at all the operation of Bayfront Park. It's not going to affect whether we need to bring Ultra or not, because frankly, to run the park, we don't need Ultra. The budget that we approved for this coming fiscal year did not include Ultra. We didn't have a contract, so you can't include it. And since that, we've approved other contracts that are bringing us more money without noise, without problems, and there's going to be even more contracts They're going to be coming in the same fashion. My goal is that in the next several years, we could bring at least an additional $10 million to the trust that are in activities that people can enjoy, that the park will be kept open, and that they're not going to bring noise. But remember this, that ultimately the park belongs to the city of Miami, and this commission is the ultimate voice. And I truly believe that we can't just cut off the city's assets where you have different small kingdoms that people control those monies. We're one city, and if one of those assets has the ability to bring money to the city, then those dollars that are not needed should be brought back into the city. And that's the first thing I did when I was mayor with the Off Street Parking Authority. Never in the history of the city of Miami prior to that have they brought any money to us. You should see what they're contributing now, and that's a reason why you're getting better service and your taxes haven't gone up, because that's a stream that's coming to the city like it should. So I didn't do anything different that I haven't always believed in or done in the past. Last thing I'd like to say, for the record, the fiscal year 2015-16, the information that I was given was that the park was open 85% of the time. 56 days it was closed, 30 attributed to Ultra. Fiscal year 16-17, that dropped to 75%, with 93 days the park was closed, 33 attributed to Ultra. But that was the year that you have Roaring Loud, so that's why it peaked some. And finally, this fiscal year, we're going to end up with 80% of the time that the park was kept open, 73 days closed, and another 31 days attributed to Ultra.
Mr. Chairman, I need to respond, I'm sorry.
Well, you've had an opportunity to speak. Commissioner Reyes has not. Commissioner Reyes, and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. And I have a comment about the transformation of Bayfront Park. I never liked the inauguration style. I like the way that it was, that you drove in Flagler Street and you saw the sea. You see, I was not too fond of that. That now everybody likes them, but before there were a lot of people like me that didn't like it. Okay, now, and also we had beautiful Japanese garden there that they took it someplace else. Now, what I've seen and what I have here in my hand is draft of an agreement that we received just the day last night. Last night, and this is what we have here. Now, if I look at it, it seems that there's still pending certain clarification on the amount of decibels, times, the lights, insurance, term, the dates, additional charges. You see, what time it's going to end, and all of that. I got to tell you that I met with some of the neighbors. And from my meeting with them, we talk about everything, and some of you are here. And we agree and we talked about the possibility of all coexisting. And coexisting means that you are going to be agreeable to modifications that won't make your life, will hurt your life so much. But I don't see any type of that agreement, and I don't see, and it's not clear to me, you see. And I would love for you guys to get together, just like, and try to reach an agreement and see if there's a possibility of of coexisting. If it is the possibility of 1 year and then keep on working, but I don't know. But I don't have. There's no clarification on this contract. I cannot vote on this contract.
Vice Chairman.
You see,
Thank
I
you
cannot
very
vote
much.
on this contract.
And I just need to make a clarification for the record because an accusation was made about a staffer of mine as well as a board member of the Bayfront Park Trust who happens to be my appointee. My staff member attends all the meetings there simply to watch. I was approached by my appointee, who was at the time the president of the Downtown Neighbors Alliance, who was meant to be a check and balance and a voice of the neighborhood on that board. And she said she felt her vote on the issue of $3 million that was taken out of the reserves was not done in earnest, that she did not have the correct information given to her on a high-pressure vote. They asked a lot of questions as a board. They were told there was a financial gap, an emergency that needed to be filled at the city, and that the city would appreciate it, and that the trust needed the help. The fact that you already knew where that money was going, and you didn't disclose that to that board, she wanted to recall her vote. She came to me with that. I never came to her with that. They didn't feel, but the votes are stacked on that board. All of the at-large members are yours. So those few people don't really have a chance, but they voted yes with you because of what you told them. And all of the board members there, only 2 of you knew what it was for, which was for the labor pensions. And so she wanted to recall her vote.
Not so, sir. It was for the general fund, and the city would use it in whichever way he says fit. But for you to say, or try to say, that we don't need the money,
Never said that.
well, that's where you're headed to.
Nope.
You know well the problem that we have in this year's budget, that even when today we approve it in the second reading, because by state law we're supposed to have a balanced budget, it's only going to be a balanced budget, because your vote before I was here, and the consequence of it, is not going to be heard until early next year, when we're going to get hit by who knows how many millions of dollars that we're going to have to pay up, because you wanted to shoot from the hip on Watson Island. You wanted to be the big man in town, and that costs us. You didn't listen to the city attorney, you didn't listen to anyone, and that's going to cost us tens of millions of dollars. So we have that. We have other contracts that are not finalized with the unions, where we're going to have a problem in this fiscal year. And I hope you're not going to deny to me that the administration has already told you, besides that for the next fiscal year, we're millions in the hole, and probably a lot more than they're even telling us. But don't worry, I'm going to keep finding money from everywhere.
All right, so what I'm going to do is this.
Let me ask a question. My understanding, Commissioner Carollo, you created a draft with the help of the neighbors and everyone involved. Am I correct?
The neighbors gave a lot of input, but frankly, the neighbors were not given as much of the input as they should have had. Okay. And I'll tell you why, because the contract was changing us a lot of times in the formula that they wanted to use by Ultra. So by the time that the final draft was done, the neighbors got it very late, but I will tell you, they immediately responded to it. They didn't come up with excuses. They responded to it and put what they wanted down. Look, what we did was present to you a contract that, one, in the financial side, we would be as best as we possibly could be. 2, that we would have many new guarantees, including that in any future lawsuits, they will hold the city and the trust harmless. We included as many of the areas that the neighbors wanted. That's why you see drops in times from the hours that they used to finish. And we try to be as professional with Ultra as we possibly could. Having said that, I told both sides, that they were free and they should come out and present to you the key areas that they're not in agreement with, that they would like to change in the contract. And I think that's only fair for both sides, for you to listen to that and you decide if you want to make changes in those few key areas that are left, that are the most important for Ultra, for the neighbors. But at no time that was this drafted with one person in mind or one person felt. I don't think that way. We have a democracy. I respect that democracy. I respect that each of you has the same weight in a vote that I do up here. And as I stated on the beginning of this discussion and debate, whatever the will of this commission is, I will take it back to the trust, and I will vote with that decision.
I've been reading the draft that was created originally, and their opinion, what they cannot accept, and I just received information today, so there's no way I can approve this.
Well, Commissioner, to be honest with you, there are many things in there that I didn't receive also until yesterday, because after the city attorney and I met with the Ultra people on Monday, they were supposed to meet on Tuesday and just go over some minor areas, and there were a tremendous amount of things that were changed from Ultra.
So I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble because this appears that it was not ready to be heard today. And so what was the issue with us having a continuance on this to be able to discuss what was going to actually be in this agreement, things that need to be amended in the agreement? Because what I'm hearing right now, and maybe Ultra can step up to one of the lectures, because what I'm hearing right now is that it doesn't appear to be that there's the votes for a 5-year agreement. I've heard rumblings in the wind that a 1-year agreement was not for consideration through Ultra, by Ultra. And then here we are now attempting to make a decision about something where we need to know the position of Ultra, because if not, then we're not going to waste any more time on this. I think we should go to a vote on something.
But originally, they were willing to go with a year. So that changed in the last few days.
So we should know,
or Monday.
We should know what's what.
Ray Martinez, on behalf of the Ultra Music Festival. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. If the question is that are we willing to consider a 1-year deal to give us the opportunity to move forward and to continue our negotiations to sit down on a longer deal, then yes, we would accept that.
But that would require 4 votes as well, a 1 year as well.
Mr. Chairman, I think if we want to be fair here, we want to be fair because obviously for to the neighbors and to Ultra, I think that we should, since I would see that there was an honest effort to try to work things out, and I said, okay, 1 year, and then we start, even from the administration, 1 year, and then we keep on looking either for alternative venues or for other things, I mean, that could make it. I don't know, I think that we should consider deferring this, because this is not ready for vote, or we just vote it out, and that's it.
Question.
You recognize?
Madam City Attorney, I sent you a text the other day and asked you, is the Ultra vote 3/5 or 4/5, as is, or for 1 year? And your response was 4/5 definitely for multi-year. If it's a 1 year, technically you can say that it's not a 4/5 because it's a permit for a month with the load in, the load out, and just a date and time. This is the first time today you're telling me that even a 1 year would need a 4/5 vote. Why? What's the change?
I think, give me 1 second.
It's not a multiple year contract.
And right after that, I texted you, I need to double check that point if it is a 1-year agreement only. So I did not give you a full answer on that text. Anyhow, with respect to the further research is that this is a large agreement. There's other persons that would want this same type of agreement, a la Rolling Loud and any other type of big event and festival like this. A Coachella may want this venue, as well as Lollapalooza. So for that reason, whether it's a 1 year or whether it's a 5 year, you need 4 votes in order to waive any type of bidding. This isn't a straight use agreement. Like, they don't come in and say, give me any day, I'll get any day you want. They want a specific date and time. They want it for a specific period of time. So that is why it requires a 4/5. Everything Mr. Drummond said about the charter, ignore it because he's incorrect.
So your position is that this is a 4/5 vote no matter which way?
Right, whether it's a 1 year or whether it's a 5 year.
No. So at this point, we're either deciding to move forward today, or there's a desire to have this continue to another day, to learn more facts, to consider more research. Let me do that.
Mr. Chairman, if this is today, I'm a no, because this is a joke. And if I were Ultra, they're an amazing festival that brings such great business to the hotels and businesses of an area and to the brand of a city. Russell, this is, if I were you, I wouldn't want to work with this. This is so confusing, this is so poorly organized. We're getting different messages all the time. If this is a lease or a contract with the city, the administration should have been negotiating this with their procurement and with their skills and with the real estate asset management team, not any one of us commissioners, not a trust of the, so what we would have before us has been well vetted by our administration to be a sound contract that takes everything into consideration. Yet we're all looking at this from different parts. We're trying to throw this together at the last second. All I can do at this point is stand with my residents and say this isn't acceptable. I do not want to see the death of Ultra, but I cannot accept this. I cannot approve this today.
Is there a motion? Is there any motion that anyone wants to make?
Okay, what I do, I would make a motion, looking for 1 year only, and they have to comply with the original draft that was created with the neighbors and Ultra and all of us.
I don't even know that
It's the
original.
one
But we
that,
don't have that.
that's the one that,
The original, the one you worked out with the neighbors had the input, all that. If they didn't have any input in it, then forget it.
Did you have input? No.
but
You see, because when I met with you guys, excuse me, when I met with you guys, I mean, that was part of the of our conversation. That I mean, the ones that were with me, not the ones that were not with me, the ones that were in my office. Part of the conversation is let's try to work and lower the decibels. Try to the hours, like Sundays, for example, leave at 10. Less time in the park, and all of those things that you brought up to me. You see, I said, okay, you can stay that, and that you will be able, I don't know, be happy, but you'll never be happy with this. But at least you could. That was the impression that I got. That you will be, you could at least. Live with it for a little while we at the same time pressuring for a new venue. Yeah, that was the impression that I got when we met.
I'd like to state for the record, my name is Ken Schwartz. If you recall from the last commission meeting, Commissioner Carollo had asked us to get together as a group, Ultra and the community, in order to work things out. Despite his best attempts to get us together, we met, was it Tuesday evening? And the contract was still not ready. It had not yet been released from the city attorney's office. So therefore, the contract that's before you now it includes, I think, if I may, only the hours of operation, which cuts off at 10, but does not include anything else that we have requested.
The decibel amount that was put in the contract, what was the amount that they put in the contract at the end?
No, well, our request was for 65 decibels.
65. What was put in the contract, Madam City Attorney?
It's my recollection.
The counter that was sent to them was 95, I believe.
But what did you put down finally? Was it the 95?
95 is in this draft.
That's what I believe, 95.
Yes, 95 was
Okay.
what we sent.
Ultra wanted 110.
Right.
The neighbors were asking for 65. We went with 95. I mean, the problem that we have here is that no matter how you kick this can around, there ain't going to be no coming to minds. It's, you know, you're either wet or cold on this one. You know, hot or cold. It's one or the other. And if someone, I think the majority of members here, from what I'm gathering, know more or less where they stand. What it comes down to is that either there is going to be a concession to Ultra or a concession to the neighbors. But more than the middle road that we try to take, I don't see too much more that could be done here. And I'll give you an example. When I left the meeting on Friday with the Ultra personnel, city attorney, the executive director from Ultra and others, we were very specific in where we stood. They told us where they stood. They only a couple of major issues left, so I thought that they were getting with the city attorney the following day. Well, the following day became a can of worms. There were all kinds of more stuff that Ultra wanted to change. Yeah, they finally give in on the concession of their part. I call it something different, of paying and guaranteeing the $2 million, but they wanted all kinds of more money that they had originally been paying and had to pay to be taken from other parts. This is why the night that we met, the representative from Ultra were telling you they didn't have any of the information. Well, I wasn't at those meetings. You know, I have other things to do for the city besides Ultra. They told you they didn't know. And I got on the phone with the city attorney and told you that I would make sure that first thing the next day in the morning, she would send you what was there. And that this had to come to an end by the following day in the afternoon, because we couldn't keep at it like this. And this is precisely what I tried to avoid. But even if we would have had another month, we would be back and we'd be in the same place that we are here today. Because Ultra needs or wants certain things in the contract. The neighbors are not willing to accept that. So it falls to this commission to decide one way or another. Maybe someone here could break themselves in two, I don't know. I haven't figured out how to ever do that. But, I mean, this has been going on in negotiations and going around and around and around. I don't know how long. I don't know how much more we can negotiate this. I mean, I just assume the key points that each side has, they should present it to us, and we decide up here.
So I don't have a contract in front of me that is the original terms of whatever was being presented. I don't have that before me. So right now there's a motion to approve that contract, but I don't see what that contract is.
That contract is the one in your book, the original one that says like 10, 10, 10 on the dates. I could go over some of those points.
Was that the 1-year contract or the one that was left blank?
That was the blank.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
I
And
believe the only two.
that was done purposely because at the time they didn't know which way they wanted to go. And if you remember before that, the manager was talking about a 1-year contract that they had told him. Is that correct, Mr. Manager? They had told you they wanted a 1 year?
Yes, sir. That was a while back, yes.
All right. Yeah, what back?
You recognize.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just as a point, I think the two sticking points that we've been arguing over, obviously we have agreed on the financial impact, which is the $2 million. I believe it's on the noise level and the hours of operation. And we operate and have operated under the guidelines of the Bayfront Park Trust, and there's a promoter handbook that is given to every promoter that comes into Bayfront Park that produces an event. And in that handbook states the guidelines and the regulations that are set. And in those guidelines, the hours are 12 midnight on Friday and Saturday, and 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday. And the decibel levels are 110 decibels measured 60 feet from the stage. That is the same for every event that comes into the park, including Live Nation that operates the amphitheater. We're just asking to be treated the same. That's our contention here. You know, we want to be treated the same as Live Nation. We wanted to be treated the same as other events that come into the park or may come into the park and put on shows or concerts or whatever the case may be. If that was to change for everyone, then obviously we would have to abide by the rules of the park that everybody abides by. But in this case, we feel that we're being singled out, you know, and in essence penalized because of the type of event we are. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's information here.
Now,
Thank you.
City Attorney, help me better understand why you believe this is a multi-year, well, why this will require 4/5. Because I'm thinking through any event that requires, for instance, the rental of a space. And sometimes, many times, there's a setup, right? I don't care if that setup is 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, just depending on the level of equipment that's being used. What is it about this event that makes you believe that it is a lease? Because my thought is this.
No. Nobody's saying this is a lease. Everything that Mr. Dubin has said about the lease, about management agreement, about all that is wrong. He is wrong, absolutely wrong. This is not a lease. This is not a management agreement. Absolutely not. This is a use agreement. Unfortunately, it's a very...
I mistaken.
Okay, thank you.
This use agreement. Why is it that you believe that this use agreement must be a 4/5 vote versus a 3/5 vote?
I am obviously being conservative with regard to this. However, the reason why I think that it is 4 votes is because it is a very complicated agreement. It involves particular dates and times, a load-in, load-out period that is much larger than any of the other events that the trust has. There's obviously downtime with regard to the park that is much longer. There has been issues with other big types of events like Rolling Loud wanting to come in to the park, and then there was problems with the dates based on this event.
Because I'm thinking about this, right? If I were looking to book an event at the what is our water venue called?
The Marine
The
Stadium.
Marine Stadium. And I called into Dream because Dream had the schedule too. And I called and I said, what's Rolling Loud's event dates? I'm sorry.
Usually the last weekend of March.
Okay, so I called and I said, hey, I want to book an event at the water place.
Marine Stadium.
Marine Stadium, thank you. I want to book an event at the Marine Stadium. And they told me, well, I'm sorry, I can't book that date for you because OJ Ultra has already booked it for an event. Or they said, sure, that event is open, that event time is open, you can book it now. Then Ultra called in and Ultra said, hey, I want to book those dates. And you said, Dream says, oh, I'm sorry, well, it was already booked. So it just makes me wonder. I don't know, I mean, who books it first? Obviously, someone has to call in and book it. I wouldn't think that whoever manages that space keeps it locked in for them to book it, because then I would believe that to be more of a greater than what it is, a use agreement. But here, it seems to be that there's a day, they select that date, they're granted that date, and it has some load in and some load out time in front of it, no matter how long it is. And so, I'm of the belief that no matter if you tell me if it's 4 votes or 3 votes, there's a right answer. And it's the vote itself that says whether or not that the item passes or it fails, no matter what I say. For instance, so you tell me it's 4 votes, there's 3 of it, and I announce that the motion failed. But then there's some other knowledge that comes to be that shows that no, 3 votes is only what's required, then the item actually passes. And so, I just want to avoid that sort of headache. And what we say here is what actually is.
I understand what you're saying. If they would want a date in May or any date would do, then that's fine. But they want a particular date in March, and over the years, those are the date. For the past 20 years, that's the time frame that has been allotted for them.
When I go to book a reservation for Valentine's Day, I want that date. Now, if the restaurant is full, it's full. It's a popular date.
Right. But nobody's holding that date for you.
That's the
Chairman.
question.
Nobody's holding that date for you, no matter how great you are, unless it's available. And in this case, it's blocked out for them. So that's why it's a 4/5 versus a simple. If they would come for any date, if any date was available, then now obviously I'm being conservative, and somebody may disagree with me on that point, but it's just other people have wanted similar dates that are close to it. So.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Martinez made a fair comment. That I'd like the executive director of the trust to answer it, since he's certainly been there much longer than I have.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. What Ray Martinez had stated.
Can you say your name for
Certainly.
the record, please? And
Jose Gal, Interim Executive Director for Bayfront Park Management Shrine. What Mr. Martinez had stated, he is absolutely correct. Our promoter's handbook does state that the curfew, for lack of a better word, is 12 o'clock, is midnight for events Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday at 11 o'clock. And the decibels are listed there as well as 110. Now, what differentiates this event is that it is a multi-stage event, yet we still have the decibels at that level. Perhaps that's something that can be looked at in the future for our policy handbook to change, but that is correct. That is as stated.
that's important, because it's something that the trust should look at. I wanted to, get all the facts on the record.
If there's a motion, would we have the chance to comment on that? Because some of the things Mr. Martinez said were inaccurate and incomplete, because there are a lot more differences than just the two that he mentioned. That they've agreed to none of the conditions that the neighbors responded to in almost in a matter of hours.
Right now, we don't know what we're going to do. So I beg your patience in this. Because right now, there's no motion on the floor, right? We can't do anything if there's no motion on the floor. I'm not going to allow this to continue to move forward without a motion on the floor. And so, if there are terms that I don't think there's any term that's going to come, the community and this body, Ultra, is going to agree to. That's why we're always up here making these difficult decisions. And so, right now, I think the only thing we can decide upon is motion that was presented, or some more time to iron it out to determine whether or not what we're going to do moving forward. You recognize, sir?
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, if I could ask for a deferment and with your direction to negotiate with the administration to hopefully be able to resolve.
Here's the point, Ray, okay? I might not look to be the brightest guy around, but believe me, I'm nobody's fool. And what you guys are trying to do now, with the help of Commissioner Russell, is to take this away from the trust so that now the administration can give you the deal you guys want. And the neighbors are going to be out in the cold. There's not going to be any fairness. Now,
What are you saying?
Chairman, you tell me how you want to play. I mean, I've been as fair as anyone could be. I brought this up to this body, so this body could decide on its own. I stated that whatever this body would decide, I would be a good soldier and bring it back, and I would vote for whatever you wanted. But to be playing this game, and I've been enough into the threats that we'll do away with the trusts. And I know where the idea came from. To Commissioner Russell, it came from Ultra at the time, because he certainly didn't know that. So I want to put everything above board. You tell us what you need that you want us to negotiate further and how. The residents tell us what else we need to do. The problem is here that no matter where we end up one day, they keep changing it. And this is why you're never going to get a contract here that's going to be ready for a vote unless they give it to the administration and then other people they stick their hands in the cooking jar and they get what they want. Maybe you'll come back, for $2 instead of $2 million. I don't know. But, we talk about transparency. There's a whole campaign for so-called strong mayor. They don't call it strong mayor anymore. It's now to recall. And he says, for transparency. Well, darn it, where's the transparency here? And you guys know that I know what's going on. I've been fair to you, Ultra, and I've been fair to the neighbors. No matter what I've felt, I haven't played one side or the other. I've looked upon this the way it should be looked upon. You know, Commissioner Russell, I have a heck of a lot more experience in negotiating than negotiating how to sell yo-yos to little kids. I've been able to negotiate head on with D. Donald Trump himself, and he came on the losing end more than once. So I think I could do pretty well with some like Ultra. And this is why they've agreed to $2 million guarantee, which is almost 3 times as much as they ever paid before. And frankly, it's at the low end, as I kept telling them while they were crying, of what I think they should be paying. And I think I've shown already to this city that I can negotiate. And each of you know that. But this is not about negotiating. It's about getting Ultra whatever they want. If that's the case, let's not play any more games. You laugh. Make the motion for Ultra. Be a man. Do what you really want to do.
The man who's the good negotiator should be willing to stand by the contract he negotiated. So I don't understand why you're not supportive of the contract.
The contract that I negotiated, sir, I guess you're hard of hearing too. The contract I negotiated was not for me, it was for this city. It was for the trust. And it was a contract that had to be fair to all parties. Because even though I would not vote for it, and this is the 3rd time that I've explained it to you, maybe one of these you'll understand it. I'm one vote up here. And if a majority of you decided you wanted to approve it, then I had a responsibility to put the best contract possible for the protection of the city, the trust, the neighbors, and being as fair as we possibly could be to Ultra's request. And that's what I did.
I agree. I mean, the one thing I would say, Commissioner Carollo, when it comes, there have been many things that, there are things that I know that are not going to go in my favor, especially when it comes to contracts, etc. And no matter, I still put in details in the agreement that makes sense to me or my residents and benefits those individuals. Because if it is to pass, at least it has some mitigating circumstances within it. So I don't fault you for bringing an agreement that you did not necessarily want to support, but you bought it. So I don't have an issue with that. The only issue that I have right now is deciding how we're going to move forward, because we're still spinning our wheels on this. I'll tell you, and I'll say this in front of everyone. Now, I've said many things regarding Ultra downtown, a mixed-use community that is downtown, if you to call it lightly, and the park that all of us in the city of Miami hopefully have an opportunity to enjoy. But we have enough commissioners that look at these things from perspectives. And the angle that I've always thought about, and I've vocalized it many times, not necessarily sitting here, but in places where you should at least have heard me. And that was regarding really what Ultra does in the community. I respect the fact that Ultra is a for-profit company. However, for the sort of, and I've seen Ultra pay more and more dollars for security. I've seen Ultra pay more and more dollars for policing, more and more for use fees, etc.
They have.
And I can understand why you squirm at the sound of it costing you more money. But I've let it be known that there are many of things that occur that Ultra could be involved in that really have a positive effect on the community, that support 501c3s and events that are public that people don't pay for, where everyone gets an opportunity to celebrate, where the impact that Ultra is making philanthropically in the community could be felt. Because I'll tell you, today presently, I don't have a lot of constituents that come to hear the music at Ultra. The music at Ultra doesn't particularly move me. But you still make lots of money displaying that music. And so it's not up to me. It's not about me. And certainly there have been residents, I'm sure, that have benefited from work or selling their wares or food and things of that nature because of the economic impact that it does make in our community. However, one of the things, for instance, that I've always been very vocal about is that we have a number of different things within the city of Miami that take pride in the city of Miami, but also take pride in cultural neighborhoods, where these neighborhoods have been really marginalized by media, marginalized by lack of investment, marginalized by, and I say investment, I mean on the private side and on the public side. I'm one of those individuals that believes that the city of Miami, Miami-Dade County, the state of Florida, and the United States government owes communities of colors, especially where they cause the degradation of those neighborhoods. If you've ever run a highway through it, if you've ever allowed drugs to be manifested onto the streets and did nothing about it. You've overcriminalized the people for addiction, where today you want to really give them rehab. If you've done those to these neighborhoods, then you owe those neighborhoods something to make those neighborhoods better to live in. It's a shame that in many of our neighborhoods all across this nation, we have buildings that have not been, we have land that has not been built upon for 50 years, where we have 501c3s, as was stated before, or we basically have land that has not been invested into. And it all started with something that government did or did not do to protect those neighborhoods. Just now today, I heard someone get on the microphone and they said, you can go outside and pick up baggies, it's disgusting. And they were representing this regarding Ultra in the downtown area. And I'll tell you, Ultra didn't bring drugs downtown. You can go to downtown today and find drugs. You can find them in on the street, not necessarily on the ground, but you can certainly find them in the households. But the downtown residents are not the ones that are being overcriminalized when it comes to having drugs. The police also in the downtown area won't tolerate drug use in the public streets. You can take yourself less than 5 minutes northwest of downtown, and right now today, at this very minute, I can guarantee you have a village of people who decided they want to sit, lay, stand, and picnic in the streets of a community called Overtown, and all they are doing is buying, selling, and using drugs right there in the public streets. Worse, so much so that a young child ingested drugs and died. You think that the state attorney's office, besides the parade of show that they had about finding the person that was the cause of this, you would think that that area will be shut down. No, it has not been shut down. It is still what it is. It is still allowed. It is still a very real thing that people in this neighborhood have to deal with every single day. But it's not sexy. It's not downtown, right? And so it's neighborhoods like those that we want to really and truly uplift to ensure that the tax value in the city of Miami is something that all of us can depend on, and not just depend on the thousands of residents who are moving to the downtown area or that buy condos in the downtown area to help support the city of Miami. And so I've always said that Ultra can have a footprint there. Ultra can be a part of the renaissance of a place like Overtown. Overtown has like the Overtown Music and Arts Festival, for instance. And the Overtown Music and Arts Festival is an event that highlights historic Overtown and the progress that community is making. It allows people to come in, much like yours, and spend money, vendors to sell goods, etc. They even have, there's no other concert like the Overtown Music and Arts Festival that brings in top talent from all over the world, where children can actually come to the concert, where there is a children's festival that occurs simultaneously as that. The GMCDB seems to support multiple day festivals. They certainly support Ultra. They support a number of different other venues. Well, these sorts of events are also encouraging the spending, but more importantly, the enhancement of neighborhoods like Little Havana, like Overtown, like what goes on in the Little Haiti community. So what I'm saying to you is that I've always looked for partners in making those sorts of events spectacular. And I think that when you start to have those sorts of partnerships, when that festival goes from a one-day event to a multiple-day event, and people will continue to come and travel from outside the state to be there, and your brand is now side by side with someone who's saying we're doing something positive for a community instead of just taking from it, theoretically. I know you're giving in tax value, I know you're giving in revenue, I know you're giving all these things, but many times you have to do a little bit more than just that. And so it's about being a good corporate citizen. I think when you're able to do that, you fill a place, not with people, and I'm not saying this is what you've done, but you fill a place not with people that that you pay to be there, not with people that are on your staff or that receive a salary or benefit, but with people who are from the community, from the city of Miami, that say, you know what, look, Ultra in its presence in the downtown area brings a benefit not only to the downtown or to revenue, but it brings a benefit to lots of organizations. It brings a benefit to Optimus clubs. It brings a benefit to all these people that Ultra has had this partnership with. And I'm sure Ultra has done something. I saw pictures of an event where you provided haircuts, right? But, you know, hair grows back in the week. Right?
Mr. Chairman, I couldn't agree with you more, and that's something that we have recognized as an organization and as a company that we have to do more in the city of Miami, that we have to get back. So we're learning and trying to learn how to do that, and we're trying to partner with each of the districts, you know, and find the needs and where do we fit in being able to do more and give back to the community, especially those that are in need, the youth of our community and the elderly, that, you know, always seem to be the ones that are in the greatest need on both ends of the spectrum. So that is something that we're committed to, and we commit to you to continue to do that.
I think that if you're able to do that, you're not just paying, you know, an expense. You're not just paying a fee. I mean, you're actually using something that can have a benefit to you in many different ways.
Correct.
And the bottom line is, because I would like to have a different narrative about what this event brings. Every year is the same narrative. And the one thing I've never been able to say is that, you know what, this is one of our philanthropic partners within our neighborhoods. And they use their show to help produce these things. It just has not occurred. You know, and that's what I'm looking for. And so I know people have said on this day is how they're willing to vote on things, but I'll tell you, that's one of the things that really, to me, makes me feel one way or the other. Now, what the residents are saying, I used to live in the downtown area, and I was one of those individuals that also like to sit on my balcony and hear the hustle and bustle of the downtown area, what was happening. And obviously I've heard Ultra through my living experiences in the downtown area, and so I can understand why the residents feel the way they feel. But there's much to be said from many different angles, and that's what we're here to really talk about. So, you know, right now we seem to not have any direction, and if more time is going to give us a sense of direction, then we should do that. Because right now we've been talking about this issue for a very long time today and not have come up with some sort of resolution. And so if there is some sort of desire to continue this for another day, to add in things that make sense, then we do that. If not, then we need to vote on what's on the agenda.
I'd like for the mayor to come down to hear from him. He wants to be a strong mayor. This is the time to be strong. And let us know how he feels. Let us know if he has any input that he wants to put into it one way or another.
Could I address the question of deferral, which I think is being floated, Mr. Chairman?
No. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we've been discussing this for years. I understand all the economic benefits that it brings to the community, but the same I understand you need the downtown changing quite a bit. They all had an opportunity to get together to come up with something. They have not come up with anything, and for that reason, I'll make a motion to deny it.
It's been probably moved to deny PH3. Is there a second?
It's a second.
It's been probably moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion about the motion that's on the floor? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to deny? Now be clear. The motion to deny is only a majority vote.
Can you have a roll call on this, Chair?
Is your desire.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Roll call vote.
Roll call on item PH3. Commissioner Russell.
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes. Commissioner Croyo.
Yes.
Commissioner Gort.
Yes.
Chair Hardiman.
4. Motion passes.